Hi, my name is Holland Kerr. I'm a APD student, or a former APD student. I just finished it last semester, and I'm going to do a brief video on my recommendations. This isn't, gospel. This isn't your whole praxis, on how to be more conceptually adventurous and how to situate your responses with notions of play. Okay, so first off, I'm going to start by saying over the course of the semester, I did a 3D work, a 2D work, a stop motion work, a puppet, a digital interactive work, a tabletop game, an outdoor game, a work of fiction, an ASMR, and a series of outdoor interactive paintings. I made myself sort of a promise early on that no two works that I created would be too similar. Whether or not you want to adopt those rules for yourself, or whether or not you want to aim everything you do at one specific practice, it's up to you, buddy. Like, you do what you're going to do, but that's how I did things. I promised myself that I would never work in the same medium twice, because I wanted to explore as much as I could during APD, because one of my goals for my whole degree is to become a sort of jack of all trades for a lot of different mediums, so that I'm very useful and very hireable, to be frank with you. So my first point here on how to be more conceptually adventurous, obviously, is to add variety, intentional variety. Number two is understanding what playing means in the confines of APD. Play is a really, really general term, and the more research you do on this subject, the more you'll realize that play can mean so many things. You've probably noticed that in lecture 1 in week 1. You're like, well, this is a very general thing that you're sort of offering us. How do we get specific about it? And the truth is, you don't have to be that specific about it. You can explore lots of different types of play. We'll get into research in a minute, but firstly, I just want to say that playing, what I would focus on is the concept of playing with something. You are playing with an idea, an object, or a medium. You're taking something and you're playing with it. And making fun out of it, I think, is the goal of the day. Or making something separate to the original object out of it, whatever that may be. That's the kind of play that I did, is I played with something, with being the operative word here. All right, my next note, take notes as you go and use them. So what I would do every week is I would listen to the lecture, and then I would write down lots of notes, literally anything that came to mind and how I would interpret it. One time Matt mentioned if animals could perceive art, and I immediately wrote down, cool, what kind of animals would perceive art? Dogs are good at reading dog faces, so you can use the visual language of dog faces. Pigeons are really common and in outdoor spaces, and you can put stuff in outdoor spaces and pigeons would see it. Things like that. It's a dumb idea. I didn't pursue it, but I wrote it down, and I remember it because I wrote it down, and it's here in front of me. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about literally throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. Write down every dumb idea as fast as you can. You will use 1 out of every 10 ideas you write down. But if you don't write them down, you're just going to use the 1 or 2 ideas you remember, which may not even necessarily be the best ones. So yeah, you'll notice in my book, I've got footage here of my book. In the margins of each one, I've written down stuff to look into further. And like, what if I did this? What if I made a perspective work where things stacked in front of a distant object that's huge to create the illusion of a landscape that's actually built across a long distance, which I ended up using in my outdoor sculpture sort of painting interactive called Itty Bitty City, where I would paint people in front of buildings that when you look at them from a certain angle, they look just like regular people sitting across the street. That was a good example of a note that I took that turned into a work that I made. So take as many notes as you can, as fast as you can. Thumbnails, sketches, doodles, writing, anything like that, just as you go. I keep them in a separate margin just so that they're separate from my lecture notes. And they're all kind of collected together. That's my sort of writing language. I find that helps. So thinking laterally. So thinking laterally is thinking outside the box it's a screenplay writing term originally. So thinking vertically is thinking in the way that you've seen things done before because you know that they work. Say you're writing a screenplay about police academy, and you go, great, I've seen movies about a police academy. There's a plucky young protagonist character. He's male, he has a female love interest, he has a goofy side character friend, etc., etc. And that's thinking vertically, because you're thinking along the lines of things you've seen because you know that they function, and because other people have used them. They're tools that people have developed before, as opposed to thinking laterally. You're going to be casting a wide net. You're writing a screenplay about a police academy, and it's underwater, and all the main characters are walruses, and a bunch of sea sponges are going to try and take over the sea academy, and they won't stop them, rada, rada, rada. That's thinking laterally. Whether or not anybody's going to make that movie, I don't know. I mean, no, you know what? Patent pending. My idea. Police Academy, Walrus movie. Got it. Anyway, how to situate your responses with notions of play. Okay, so the first tip I'm going to give you on situating your responses within notions of play is don't be afraid to go with your gut, go with your instincts, follow your notes, do what you want, and then retrospectively, but very honestly, analyze why it is you did what you did. That's the thing I really like about Magi in general, is because I was taught to do that in semester 1, and it's been so helpful. Instead of pretending I know what I'm doing from day 1, instead of planning everything perfectly from the minute I get started, just do what you want and then ask yourself why it is you want that. I would say sometime around 2016, or not 2016, probably 2012, when I first started my original university degree at UTAS, I had a habit, and you may have this habit too, and that's why I'm giving you this advice, of creating whatever I wanted and then not situating it actually, not realistically, not truly, but coming up with a reason why I did it that sounded smart to everyone else, whether or not that was an honest reason for doing it. In this way, I completely leapt over and totally ignored the reasons I actually did things and convinced myself that I had done them for completely different reasons. This is a very intellectually obstructing and also obviously very cynical way to work in order to get good grades by sounding and looking smart, when in reality you haven't really analyzed why it is what you do. Also, worth noting, I didn't get good grades. Teachers can see right through that shit. It's a terrible idea. But I didn't really know what I was doing. I was, 18. Anyway, so my first piece of advice is to be very honest with yourself about why you do things. For example, a good way to analyze how or why you do something is to not do it. Case in point, I have a habit in storyboards of putting people on screen, in perfect profile, so that everything lays flat in a completely flat shot against the screen. It's not a very dynamic or attractive way to film anything. It's a weird instinct to have. So I stopped doing it earlier this year while I was working on storyboards, and I realized that when I stopped doing it, that I couldn't see the two faces of the characters I needed doing dialogue on screen, and I realized somewhere deep down that's why I had been doing it in the first place. Now that gave me a reason as to why I was doing it, and that reason I could then apply to my future work. So if you want to know why it is you do something, you have some artistic habit, and it is, you're an artist, you're not stupid, you have very good reasons for doing what you're doing, whether or not you've consciously registered them or not. If you want to ask yourself why it is you do them and then consciously register them, stop doing them, and you'll realize why they're helpful, why they're useful. That's a really good tool that I've been using lately. All right, and my last point is reading. Reading helps a lot. You and I both signed up for a Magi degree. It is a research-oriented degree. That research is both through your practice and throughout. It is looking at written works, it is looking at other works that are in your field, it is looking at the world around you, and it's choosing to analyze the millions and millions of artworks that you already actually look at every day and really start thinking about why you like them, which is great because unconsciously you have been doing research this whole time. Right, so yeah, reading helps a lot. I had trouble reading early on. and understanding what play was, and reading really helped me. The first work I read that really helped was Thomas Hendrick's Toward a General Theory of Play. It's not just useful because it's very articulate, it's useful because it outlines, that specific work outlines lots of different people who practice play and what they think. So it gives you a general look at the field of play theory discussion, and then you get to make your own decisions from there. Another great example of this is Costello. Both of the Costello works that are in the APD recommended readings are incredibly articulate, super easy to read, and take it from me, I'm basically illiterate, so it's if it comes from me, believe me, it's very easy to read, and very articulate, and outline what a lot of different people think and how their theories contrast one another in her eyes, by her opinion, Costello's opinion. So that's another great work. Hendricks and Costello, cannot recommend those two enough, and then I would branch out from there and look into who they recommend and who they start talking about. A point on research. The benefits of research are sort of threefold. Firstly, it's part of your degree, and you should have been doing it this whole time. You've been doing it this whole time, right? You've been keeping on top of your research all the time, doing lots of reading. I know how literate you are. You've definitely been reading, right? I know I have. No, I'm basically illiterate. I struggle with reading so much, but I do make myself do it. And whenever I have the energy, especially with APD, I remember going through and making myself read things, as difficult as it can be sometimes. Second point is that research is functionally not that different to getting crowd opinions on your work. You know, it's you have to sort of line up where things specifically relate to you. But the fact of the matter is, you can ask Maria Montessori what she thinks of representation with regards to play, because she wrote it down, and therefore she'll tell you. You know, you can ask Huizinga, if that's how you pronounce that, what he thinks of animals and humans with regards to our instincts of play. And interestingly, they'll line up some of the time with what you already think. Researching it's like a lens in a lot of ways. You ever see those things where like somebody's assembled, what's it called? Like Girl with the Pearl Earring, and they've laid a bunch of different colored lenses over it, the sort of RGB scale, and laid it over it, and suddenly it makes a perfect image. And researching is, if you could visualize that, very similar to laying a sort of screen over your work and seeing where your opinions line up with other people's opinions and where they don't, and what that means. In a very similar way to that, it's seeing what your theories have to do with other people's, how other people have worded things, and that's the third point, is that there's nothing that's more of a relief in the world than having an idea in your mind without any means of articulating it, and then seeing that somebody else has already written it down in perfect wording. It's a literal high. It's a wonderful feeling, seeing how other people have said things and how you can then incorporate those sayings into your own work and your own thinking. Because don't forget, you think in words. And the way other people use words will affect how you think. That's what research is for, you know? All right. So you can get a sense of what someone else would think of your work, and you can articulate your work more properly, and you can see where your ideas overlap with other people's. Research has a lot of benefits. Of course, it's a big part of this degree. Yeah, so that's how I would recommend situating your responses with notions of play. It's begin to line up your ideas with other people's ideas and see what works and see what doesn't. Be frank with yourself and your teacher. If your, Montessorian play theory doesn't really apply to your work, that's fine. The fact that it doesn't is just as remarkable as the fact that it does. You know what I mean? It says just as much that Maria Montessori would absolutely hate the majority of the work that I created this semester in APD. I'm not bitter about it. You're bitter about it. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It's fine. I'm fine. Anyway, it says a lot by itself, and what that says a lot about your work and your direction and your practice and your choices, and you should write those things down because they matter. Anyway. All right, so that's my advice. Thank you so much. Good luck with APD.